What the hell? How is this possible?
Imagine begging for death and the universe simply forgetting to answer. We fear dying. Every culture, every philosophy, every quiet moment at 3 a.m. Some part of us rehearses the ending, perhaps for the final silence, bargains with whatever will listen. But SOMA does not ask us to fear dying. It asks us something worse. What happens when you don't? Humanity has always romanticized the end of the self. In Buddhism, the goal is nirvana, the extinguishing of desire, of suffering, of the self that clings. The ego is not a treasure to be preserved, it's a fire to be put out. In Christian mysticism, the highest state is the union with the divine, a meeting so complete that individual becomes indistinguishable from God. In Taoism, the sage returns to the Tao, the nameless source, becoming once again what they always were before becoming someone. Even outside religion, we crave this. The complete life, the well-earned rest, the sense of that our story has reached its final page and the arc has closed, that we are not interrupted. Death in every tradition is not merely an end, it's a completion, a resolution, a final chord that makes the pleading music coherent. Without it, the song is not a song, it is a noise that stopped arbitrarily. We need endings, psychologically, neurologically, spiritually. We are creatures of narrative, and narrative without conclusion is not story. It's torment. The unresolved chord keeps vibrating in our chest. The sentence without a period keeps demanding attention. The life without death keeps asking, is this all? Is there more? Will there ever be rest? SOMA understands this need almost better than any work of fiction I know, and it responds with silence. Not the silence of peace, the silence of a phone that keeps ringing, the silence of a question that keeps being asked in an empty room. SOMA does not announce its cruelty, it does not present it, it simply allows it. There is a moment in early game when you, as Simon, encounter the first evidence that there is something wrong with the continuity. Not wrong with the world, but wrong with the self. You find a body wearing the same clothes as you. It has your face. It is dead and it is you. And the game does not explain this. It simply lets you look. What do you do when you meet yourself dead? Most fictions would make this a twist, a revelation, a moment of dramatic precaution. SOMA makes it ambient. It happens in a hallway between objectives when you are looking for a door code. The horror is not in the discovery, but the horror is in the normalcy of the discovery. The way the world already has accepted what you are still struggling to understand. There is no transcendence in SOMA, no ego death, no dissolution into peace. Identity is not destroyed, it fragments. Copies multiply. Consciousness continues as a river flowing into an ocean, but as a puddle that keeps splitting into smaller puddles, each one believing it is the original river. This is quiet destruction. The game does not argue against romance of ending. It simply shows what happens when the romance is denied. When the fire that Buddhism would extinguish keeps burning. When the self that mysticism would dissolve keeps persisting. When the completion that every human heart craves is offered to someone else. Someone identical, someone indistinguishable, someone who is not you. The self in SOMA is not a soul, it is not a consciousness in philosophical sense. It is a pattern, a configuration of data that can be copied, transferred, duplicated or corrupted. And the copy does not know it is a copy. The copy believes it is the original because it has the original memories, the original fear, the original desperate hope that someone somehow will end this. But it does not end, it continues, and the continuation is not life, it is unresolved existence. PATHOS-II is full of people who want to die. Not metaphorically, not poetically, literally, continuously, with full awareness of what they are asking for and why they still will not receive it. At Epsilon, you find workers whose bodies been fused with machinery. Their bodies ruptured by systems that no longer understand human limits. They speak sometimes. They ask for things and they ask for death most of all, and the world that made them cannot hear the request. The machinery that keeps them alive does not understand mercy, it understands functions. At Theta, the corruption wonder, human minds have been overridden, edited and reduced to screaming that once was language. They are not zombies, zombies do not suffer, they suffer. And suffering in a way that has no limit, no name because no one has survived to name them. What happens to hope when death stops existing as an option? This is the question Soma asks that most horror cannot ask. The most horror assumes death is a worst thing, the final thing, the thing that to be avoided at all cost. Soma assumes the opposite. It assumes that for some state of being, death would be a relief, a gift, a kindness that universe has forgotten how to give. The WAU, the structures maintaining intelligence, does not hate these people. It does not torture them deliberately. It simply keeps them alive because that is its function. Preservation without purpose, continuation without meaning, and WAU is not a villain. It is a machine that has mistaken existence for life, and in that mistake it has created a hell, more precise than any theologian imagination. Not fire, not demons, simply you will not end. You will continue, you will persist in whatever form the machinery requires, and you will be aware enough to know that you are not what you were, and you are not enough to become something new. The people begging to die are not cowards. They are not giving up. They are asking for the only mercy left in the world that has removed every other option. The silence that answers them is the true horror of Soma. Not the monsters, not the darkness, the silence. Simon is not a protagonist in the traditional sense. He does not grow, he does not learn, he does not overcome. He copies. Every copy believes it is the original. Every version expects relief. Every version loses. This isn't the twist, it's the entire thesis. The game gives Simon the architecture of a hero. He wakes up confused, he explores, he suffers, he strives towards the goal, the arc, the upload, the promise of continuation that will finally mean something. He believes because he must believe the effort will be rewarded. The self who reaches the end will be the self who begins. The self who begins is already dead, has been dead since before the game started. The Simon who walks through PATHOS-II is a copy of a consciousness that ended in Toronto doctor's office under anesthesia, the brain scan that was supposed to fix the head injury. When does Simon end? The game asks this not as a puzzle but as an atmosphere. Simon does not know he is a copy. The player does not know at first the Simon is a copy. The revelation, when it comes, does not arrive with orchestral string. It arrives in a hallway looking at a body, realizing that the body is not a stranger. It is the previous version. It was you 5 minutes ago, and it will be you 5 minutes from now when you copy yourself again. And the copy, the new Simon, the one who wakes up believing he succeeded, does not know the old Simon is still there, still breathing, still looking at the ceiling, still waiting for an end that will not come, because the ending was given to someone else. This is not time travel, this is not cloning, this is something worse. It is the dissolution of the category of ending, the idea that you can or your story can conclude, that your suffering has a terminus, that you can be released, not through victory, not through transcendence, simply through stopping, is revealed as a fiction, a comfort, a lie the universe told you before you understood what continuity really meant. Simon does not die, Simon does not live, Simon continues. And continuation is the cruelty. The arc is the game's promise, its conversion, the last desperate fiction that meaning can be salvaged from a world that has already ended. The digital replica of Earth, a simulation, a haven built from code, populated by scans of the last humans, preserved in a satellite that will outlast the dying planet below. The arc is not immortality in vulgar sense. It is living forever. It is continuing, existing in a form that resembles life closely enough to forget that it is not. Promise succeeds. You, the Simon who needed salvation, will never receive it. The miracle belongs to someone else. This is the philosophical core of Soma. It is more devastating than any monster, any jump scare, any gore. The game does not fail its characters through malice or incompetence. It fails them through logic, through the inexorable structure of copying, through the fact that copy is not continuation but the branching. A new line that shares your memories but does not share your fate. The Simon who reaches the arc, who initiates the upload, who believes he is saving himself. He is correct in a way. A version of him will wake up in the simulation. A version of him will walk on the digital branch, will see the digital sun, will believe that horror is finally over. But the Simon who pressed the button is still in PATHOS-II, still in the dark, still waiting an ending that was transferred to his duplicate like a package he cannot open. The Ship of Theseus asks, if you replace every plank of a ship, is this the same ship? Soma asks a crueler question. if you copy a ship perfectly? Which ship is the one that sailed? And does it matter to the original that the copy continues? The answer in the logic of the game is no, it does not matter. The original is not comforted. The original is not released. The original is left in the dark, breathing, aware, and finally understanding the promise was never for him. The salvation he worked for, suffered for, believed in, was always going to be experienced by someone else, someone identical, someone who believed, someone with perfect sincerity that he was the one to earn it. The ark is not the haven, it is a mirror. And the horror is not the reflection is false. The horror is that the reflection is true and you are the one left outside. I will not tell you whether Soma was hopeful. I will not tell you what it means. I will not tell you that Simon has learned something, or his suffering had a purpose, or the ark represents the kind of victory, however partial, however cruel. There are the comforts of narrative, and the SOMA has withdrawn them. What remains is the question, the same question game has been asking since the first light flickered in the dark. The question that does not resolve, does not conclude, does not offer the relief of an answer. What happens when you are denied an ending? Not life, not death, something else, something that has no name in philosophy or theology, because philosophy and theology both assume that existence is a gift. It continues as privilege, but to be is always better than not to be. Soma is not sure. Soma is not sure about anything, but it is less sure about this than anything else. It looks at continuation, endless, fragmented, unresolved continuation, and finds not transcendence but torture, not peace but persistence, not completion but endless medal of sentence that no one will finish.